Hello guys, it's me, Slimelook. A couple of months ago, I explored the first part of the tower level in Metro 2033. But since then have noticed that I missed a lot of interesting things and also haven't even covered the second version of this level yet. So I went back and have now found a ton of cool out of bounds things about the tower level. So with that, welcome once again to the Metro Out of Bounds series. Right outside the Sankino security building, we can come across 3 separate ranger models, which are the Spartans that help us fight the Watchmen with Miller. And they also seem to have 2 different states, as they are sometimes idle, but at other times are also in a sort of an aware state where they just look around frantically. Something cool I also found is the gun this ranger is using, because if we take a look at it, we can see a weird attachment on it, which looks to be some sort of grenade launcher. And a commenter has even confirmed this on my last video I made about this level and pointed out that this is actually a scrapped weapon mod that we can even see getting used in an early gameplay video of the pre-alpha of Metro Last Light, which is so cool to see, but also it's unfortunate that they scrapped it. I also noticed that the ranger we see with this gun is actually using this gun model when we fight off the Watchers with Miller, but only in the first version of the level, as in the second one he's using their normal AK model again. Just such an interesting little detail that I never even noticed in this game. Right next to the metro station we can also come across this vehicle of the Rangers, which we would normally see during a specific animation. And we can even see a Ranger manning the turret, but the driver does seem to be missing at first. But we can actually find him among the group of Rangers we saw before. Now we would normally see this vehicle driving in when we enter a specific part of the level of the tower. But the area for this animation to trigger is actually pretty big, which allows us to trigger it from some interesting places, resulting in some funny animations. On this level, like most other ones, we can once again come across a bunch of hidden monster models. Far outside the playable area of the map, we can find this bush, where we can see a small group of watchers hiding behind it. There is also the sole watcher behind them, and something interesting happens if we walk into him. When we do, Miller will suddenly scream "fire at will", which automatically triggers the Rangers we saw before to frantically fire the guns around them, but still from their old position, which makes it look extremely funny, because what are you aiming at? Unfortunately, soon after we trigger this to happen, after a set amount of time, it will automatically trigger an animation, which will then teleport us back to the normal part of the level. A bit further away, we can also find this much bigger group of watchers, but there are also a bunch of monster models on less obvious spots on the map. For example, if we climb to the top of this tree, we can see a bunch of watcher models on the roof of the metro station, which probably are the placeholders for the watchers we fight inside it. There are also some watcher and demon models hidden under the map, which I guess would be the ones that get used during the end of the fight sequence on the level. Something you can also do is get out of bounds on the metro building itself on the tower level, and from inside we can go to some interesting places. From this spot we can jump on the basement roof of the level and are able to walk around that area freely. And while walking around there, I noticed something interesting after I went to this part. There was a model of an arm hiding inside the snow, and I think that's actually Artyom's arm model, because the model is the exact same as the special radioactive suit we can see him wearing during the mission. You can also see these arm models without having to go out of bounds, because when you walk out the metro station, instead of following Miller to continue with the mission, if you walk to the left side where this fence is, you can actually see the arm model sticking out of the snow in the distance. Unfortunately, this level doesn't have its own weapon stash, but we can find this Soul Kalash 2012 lying on the ground. which is basically the exact same weapon we are using, just that the laser is missing this time. For some reason, I always wanted to go up to this second floor inside the metro station. Well, we can actually get up there with some tricky parkouring, but unfortunately when we get there, there isn't really anything interesting up there. But it's still cool that you can get there either way. I also managed to get to the roof of the metro station, which is something I failed to achieve in my last video about this level, but after a lot of trial and error, I actually managed to find a way to get up there. And from up here we have a great view of the level, which makes me wonder, can we also climb the Ostankino Tower? Well, I have tried to climb it in the last video I made about this level, but unfortunately only a small part of it is actually climbable. Because at some point you just face right through the walls and fall down to your death. Now, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the tower level has two separate versions with both looking different from each other. But that also counts for the monster models scattered across the level. Far outside the playable area, there is this massive cluster of monster models with multiple groups of watchers, including the smaller one consisting of 4, as well as this much larger army of them consisting of a whopping 10 watchers. Unfortunately, this sole watcher was not invited to the party, which makes me feel kinda bad for him. There are also these watcher and demon models that are for some reason frozen in the attack animation, which is something I also haven't seen before. If we stand on this specific spot in front of the Ostankino Tower, we can also see a demon model hidden under the map. On the level, we can always see these two demons flying around it. But I noticed that they aren't actually flying in a random pattern like I originally thought, but are actually flying in a pre-scripted way. And this becomes very obvious when we look at these two spots. On this spot over here, this demon will always come down for a dive, and on this spot we can always see one of the demons of the two coming down to take a small break before flying out again and repeating the process all over again. On the second part of the tower level, we can also come across some of the weapon models once again, but this time in two separate and smaller groups, like this one which just has the Kalash 2012 and a mask and filter, and this other one which has the Kalash 2012 again for some reason, and as well just a normal AK next to it. Two landmarks that also drastically changed when visiting the level for the second time are the metro station and the Ostankino Tower. The metro building is now much more barren than before, with the inside part now having lost all the assets from before, and the basement of it has now also completely disappeared. The Ostankino Tower, on the other hand, has now much more details to it than before, especially the entrance for it, which wasn't visible on the first part of the level, as well with the bottom part now having a complete interior, while the last one didn't really have one. And something cool we can actually do inside the Ostankino Tower is go out of bounds and glitch inside the elevator shaft of it, which you would normally take to go up the elevator with Mildred. And something cool about this elevator shaft is also that we can actually climb it and get extremely far up. Unfortunately though, not to the very top, as after a while there aren't really any objects we can climb on to get higher anymore. We can also jump into the area where we would go with Miller to go up the elevator without having to load the cutscene for it, which leads to him just standing there still waiting for us. Also, if we try to go in the elevator we would normally take, we just fall right through it, as it's not solid anymore for some reason. We can also get out of bounds at the top of the tower, but unfortunately there isn't actually too much to see up here. On the whole level there is also a certain cutoff point where if Artyom crosses it, it will automatically trigger his falling animation, which kills him shortly after. And this does sadly mean that we can't explore some of the bottom levels of the tower because of it. Something I've also noticed is that when we try to climb this tower without using the intended route, that it actually feels pretty natural to climb. This makes it all seem like it was somehow made on purpose to offer the player some alternatives to climb it, but if we do take these unintended routes, we can come across some out of bounds areas. There's this random opening that lets us get into a part of the elevator shaft we couldn't normally get to, and from in here, if we go down far enough, we can see all the way to the bottom of the tower. Just do make sure you don't go down too far, or else a falling animation will trigger. I am so glad I went back to this level, because there were so many interesting things we missed in the last tower video. But that does cover all I managed to find on this level. But with that said, thank you all once again so much for watching the video and for the amazing support you all keep showing on this channel. It really means a lot to me. But with that, I'll see you in the next time. Bye!